Hey, ladies and gents, this is Dewis coming at you from PowerLordsReturn.com, and I'm going to try something new today. It's going to be something I'm going to call Mexocentric, because it's going to focus on all the Mexicans and the half Mexicans that have played in the NFL that have been immortalized in plastic. So, Miguel, are you going to join me today? Come on.
No.
I'm forcing Miguel to sit here and listen to this history of Mexicans in the NFL, even though he apparently doesn't care about the NFL. Is that true?
Yes.
But football season just started yesterday, so I'm excited. And let me take you on this trip through memory lane. First off, come here. This is Tony Romo. Tony Romo is the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. At least he was until he broke another bone in his back, and he pretty much specializes in getting injured lately. So I don't think he's going to be along very. He's not going to be around very much longer because every time they touch him, he seems to break something. But Tony Romo is actually half Mexican, and I think his real name is something like Antonio Ramiro Romo or something, but he goes by Tony Romo. And I've included half Mexicans because Mexicans aren't any particular race or ethnicity. They just have a certain connection to Mexican national origin. So here's Tony Romo. I don't like to play with the robot that much because I'm afraid he's going to break, like the real Tony Romo. But the kind of cool thing is that his head flips, at least it's supposed to flip, and then he can turn on to a full-on Dallas Cowboy robot. It's kind of reminiscent of the Fox robot that comes out in the commercials, but the Dallas Cowboy quarterbacking job is probably one of the most prestigious jobs in sports. Everybody's going to know who you are if you quarterback the Dallas Cowboys. So everybody knows who Tony Romo is, even though a lot of people probably don't know that he is half Mexican. So Tony Romo will probably go down in history if he doesn't play another game and be best known for flubbing the hold on an extra point during the playoff game so that the Cowboys don't get to the Super Bowl. But he's a great quarterback and a great improviser who just hasn't had that much success when it came down to the playoffs. So anyway, that's Tony Romo, or Antonio Ramiro Romo, or you guys can look it up on Google, see what his real name is. Here's another half Mexican who has had a lot of trouble with injury in the NFL, and that is Arian Foster. Not a lot of people know that he's black and half black and half Mexican, but he had at least a couple of very successful years. I think he led the league in rushing, and he has some very interesting philosophical beliefs. He's kind of a smart guy, and he goes against the grain a lot, and hopefully he can bounce back. He's with the Miami Dolphins now, not the Houston Texans, but hopefully he can come back from his injury and dominate the NFL like he once did. That's highly doubtful. Next is Jeff Garcia, who's actually one of my favorites quarterbacks because not only is he half Mexican, he's from Gilroy, California, but he's a small guy. He was a small guy, and he played for the 49ers, and he did a great job. I think he made it to the Pro Bowl one year. And Jeff Garcia, I used to go to Stockton and watch him play in the training camp, and was just amazed how this tiny, scrawny little guy could go up there and play quarterback. And just seeing him next to specimens like Terrell Owens and some of the offensive linemen, it was just amazing to see how he played. He was a really good scrambler, very good at improvising, kind of like Tony Romo in that way. But ultimately he had a good career, and then ended up retiring and ended up actually going to the Cleveland Browns for a little bit. You got a tiny little McFarlane figure of him there, but playing quarterback for the Cleveland Browns is kind of like It's kind of a fate worse than death, I think. So, and that is Jeff Garcia. And then there's another guy from Ohio who's Mexican actually, and is Anthony Munoz, and he was an offensive lineman for the Cincinnati Bengals, and he made it to the NFL Hall of Fame. So the only one, I think, of all of the NFL players of Mexican descent to actually make it to the Hall of Fame is an offensive lineman. So that's really cool, and he's also been immortalized in plastic. There are some good offensive linemen now who are of Mexican descent, and also defensive players who haven't made it to the haven't been immortalized in plastic yet, but hopefully they will be. We talked about Romo. This is Mark Sanchez, who probably had a better collegiate career than he has a pro career. He's going to be most well known for a play called the butt fumble, I think. He ended up getting cut by Denver this year, and he's gotten picked up by, I think, maybe the Cowboys. I'm not sure, but he'll probably end up being a backup of some sort. He played for the Jets. So Mark Sanchez, folks. And this one is probably the most prized thing I have in my collection. This is Jim Plunkett, who's also of Mexican descent, and he actually won the Heisman Trophy in 1970. And here's a little Heisman Trophy that goes along with his starting lineup set. And here he's pictured in his collegiate uniform where he played at Stanford. And the cool thing about this is your mom actually got Jim Plunkett to sign it for me. So that's kind of cool. He put my name on it, and it says, thanks. Thanks for your support, Jim Plunkett, number 16. Jim is special because not only did he win the Heisman Trophy, he went and played for the New England Patriots and then won a Super Bowl for the Oakland Raiders. And that was very, very cool because he's Mexican, and his coach at the time was also Mexican, Flores. And maybe Flores should be in the Hall of Fame someday. But a pretty good career when you win the Heisman Trophy and you actually win a Super Bowl. He struggled at the beginning of his career, but ultimately he did great. And he's an announcer now that works on a lot of the radio games. So a couple of other ones that I have are these playmakers that came from the NFL. One, a Mark Sanchez and a Tony Romo. These are articulated, so you can actually move the joints and stuff. So they're a little bit more toy-like, but I've never taken these out of the package. That's a Tony Romo and a Mark Sanchez as well. So that is it for Mexicans and half Mexicans who played in the NFL. What do you think, Miguel? Still not impressed? You actually have to answer audibly because people can't see if you just shake your head yes or no.
No.
Why don't you like football? Football is a great sport. What's wrong with it? Did I tell you the story about how when I was playing football, I learned about the value of teamwork? Let me tell you the story.
Is it about hitting people in the head with rocks?
No. Oh. This is about when I was actually playing football and I was an offensive lineman. And my quarterback was back here. And my job was to protect my quarterback, right? And there was this linebacker, and the linebacker's job is to rush in and tackle my quarterback. So every time the linebacker rushed in, his helmet's on backwards. Well, listen, okay, my helmet was not on backwards. I usually was able to put it on right. But anyway, every time the linebacker rushed in to try to tackle my quarterback, it was my job to pick him up and block him and keep him from doing that. And I was playing in this game, and the linebacker on the other team was really mean, and he was growling, and he was, just going nuts, and he would blitz every single play, and every single play I'd block him, and I was just so tired of this because every single play he'd rush in and I'd have to block him. He'd rush in and have to block him, and I had bloody legs because his cleats were digging into my legs, and I was just so tired of blocking him and picking him up. And being on the offensive line is not a very glamorous position, so nobody knows who you are because you don't get to score touchdowns and stuff. They only know if you screw up. And, I was thinking, well, you know what, maybe I'll take a play off because, I'm just tired of blocking this guy, and it hurts, and if I take a play off, maybe nobody will notice, right? My job's not that important. I'm not a running back. I'm not a quarterback. I'm not one of the stars of the team. I'm just a grunt on the line picking up the blitz. So one time what I did was I just got so sick of blocking this guy is that I decided to block somebody else. And, of course, he rushed in the way he'd been rushing in all game, and he tackled my quarterback and picked him up and threw him on the ground. My quarterback fumbled, and he picked up the ball, and he ran for a touchdown. And they won the game, and my quarterback was on the ground with a broken arm because I did not pick up the blitz. And it was my fault, and I felt really bad about it. But it taught me an important lesson. It said that even if nobody knows who you are or what you do, if you're on a team, you're supposed to do your job all the time. Because if you don't do it, terrible things can happen. Right? That's an important life lesson to learn. Right? So after that, I applied that in life, and I never failed to pick up another blitz, hopefully. But even if you're anonymous and nobody knows who you are, you can still make a difference. And especially if you don't do your job, bad things can happen. All right. Anyway, that's Is the Wiz with a little story about football and a little historical perspective on the Mexicans and half Mexicans who have played in the NFL and who have been immortalized in plastic.